Craig, stories. We all have had the experience of someone taking the stage and doing what Brian likes to refer as a data dump. And it's exhausting. Right? It's just data after data after data. I think my mind is exhausted after 2 or 3 minutes if something else isn't done. And what could that something else be? What I love is stories. Stories help me translate the theoretical into the practical. So for you, Craig, as a speaker, you use stories. How and why do you use them when you step on stage?
Yeah, well, number one, it's probably one of the things I think I've learned through reflection. I have a longer story about that, but I think it is a natural strength. People say I didn't think of myself that way, and people would say, "Well, you're a storyteller." So I think when things I care about, I think I do it, and I think I've learned now to see where I do it. To kick this off, I'll start high level. What really came to mind for me was I love music, and I think a lot about music. And there's three components to music, right? There's rhythm, like that's your drum beat. That's people can't move if they don't have a rhythm. There's harmony, and harmony is kind of the chordal structure, the parts that it all works tonically or tonically. And then there's melody, and melody is the thing that floats through it all, that ties it together, that creates the inspiration, the deeper nuance and feelings on top of the structure. And I think when we're talking about story, it's an interesting one today because it is a block of the voices, but it is a unique voice that goes throughout all of it. It is how do we tie all those other fundamentals together? I'm an expert. I know what I'm talking about. I have data. I know how to engage an audience. And I think what Shana just said was really powerful, that like I can give 10 people a set of data and information, they can tell a story differently. So it's how do we contextualize information and fundamentally communicating with one another is storytelling. And I do think that those two play together. I've talked a lot about that story lights up our entire brain. It inspires us, but doesn't always inspire us to take action. Typically data will but data alone is not very inspirational. So it's hard to take action. And when we combine those two, that's like, what's our ultimate goal, Anthony? At the end of the day is communicating something and inspiring people. When we can tell story backed with the right components and what's necessary for the task at hand, that's where we can get people together, unify, and make change happen. So that's how I think about story.
Thanks, Craig. Well, let's do a contrast exercise. Talk about when a story works. And for me, when a presenter knows why they're bringing a story to the stage, then it works. When they don't know the why, or when they disconnect from their why, they tend to go off the rails, they lose track, they get stuck in their story, and the audience is now wondering, where's this all going? So why do you incorporate a story on stage? And in the presentation, Jim, the way that we've taught this in the past is you want to use a story to highlight one of the three C's. The first C is character. Character allows you to show an element of a story from your past, right? This element was a key thing that helped you navigate through challenge. So C for character. The second C is credibility. And this typically takes the shape of a case study. I met a client, we helped them navigate through the challenges and help them reach the finish line where they're celebrating today. So when we talk about credibility, you've successfully taken someone from point A to point B. And the third one is competency. Right? You're sharing about how you took all of your knowledge, skills, and experiences, and that resulted in a successful outcome. And what that translates to from the audience point of view is that they can also see how your knowledge, your skills, your experiences can map into their world, can help them navigate from point A to point B. So, Craig, those are the three when you know why to share it from the stage. Um, what tips would you have in curating or starting to build your message portfolio that may have a character story, a credibility story, or a competency story?
Yeah, I mean, I think the first thing I would, do a little bit of self-evaluation when you're building a talk, and maybe ask people, I think it's easy to start to put data together. Like I said, the melody ties it all together. The data is that kind of the structure. So to ask people, am I telling a story here, right? And I think people will give you feedback. We sense this is something that's very deep to us. I think if you're asked, you'll know. because that's really the art of where it's going to land. So I think number one is just asking and doing a real assessment. Are you strong at it? If not, there are fundamentals to storytelling, right? There is a problem. A problem was addressed. A problem was resolved. You know, part one, part two, part three. Typically, that's how our stories go. So thinking about any story that you tell, if you're going to do it on a stage, think about what's the beginning, the middle, and the end. Even if you tell it in all kinds of different ways, it needs to have that. Because to your point, Anthony, if it misses, what happens is we start to have a hard time tracking that they need to line up together. And if the story is diverging
Mhm.
from what we've been presented or what we think we're doing, now we get cognitive like load and it gets tricky for us. And that's what we don't want because we start to lose people. So I think making sure that what you're telling and asking people, are these stories relevant to like the point I'm making? I think the other thing I was thinking about when you said character, credibility, and competency, if I told you to say get on a stage and address each of those things, you could probably do it. Number one, you're going to come across from another voice, but it's probably going to take a long time because you're going down a checklist. And what's amazing, and it's a very short story, you could probably say, you know, I was working with this client. They really were acting in ways I didn't like it. So, you know, I had delivered all this great information, but we decided we hit a certain point and we called it. We said, we're not working together anymore. It's just not the right thing for us because you're not taking care of your people or what might be. And, you know, but this is what we did for them and how we handled it and how we ended it. Now, I've probably told you I'm competent. I did this work with this great company, my character, what I was willing to stand for, and I did it in a story. I think that's the really powerful thing is that you can encapsulate a lot without having to say it directly and it's short. So I would say, number one, think about your structure. You know, there are fundamentals to stories. So ask, are these stories connecting the dots well for what I'm trying to land and ask people? And then the other piece is think about what's the nuance there, and I'm able to like say things through my story that I don't have to waste time on trying to pontificate or talk about to people.
Thanks, Craig. Let's set up the exercise. So today you're going to have 2 minutes, okay, to tell a story. So step one is be connected to the why. Are you looking to highlight an element of your character? Are you looking to talk about your credibility in the past, taken someone from point A to point B? Or are you going to highlight your competency? What are the knowledge, skills, experiences, superpowers you bring to every situation that would make an impact in a client interaction with you? So I'm going to put onto the screen the framework that we want you to use. And let me publish that here. So part one is setting up the problem. You want to start by setting up the elements of the scene. Shana, you can probably teach this way better than me, but that's how we open, right? What's in the scene? What's the problem? What are the elements? What is the specific problem that exists in the scene? Then the second part is that A to B. What specifically happened? Not like all the details, but the major highlights. As you are traveling from point A to point B, what were the steps, the major steps that happened along the way? And part three is the impact. What was the impact that was created? What did you celebrate at the end? And the purpose for you telling a story is for the audience to map themselves as a person in the story and reach the conclusion that, wow, if Craig took a client from point A to point B, do the same for me. So, Craig, any nuances when it comes to this particular structure? And after you teach your nuggets of wisdom, you and I can do a demo version of this.
Sure. No, I think what stands out here, I really like this, and you know, I've seen this before, and just realizing what I just said about a story is, you know, what's the thing that the hero, be yourself, or the person in the story is trying to accomplish, or a group of people are trying to accomplish. How do they go about it, and what was the impact? So it really just maps, you know, this idea that a story has to have this resolution. So I think that's the last piece to go back to music. That you don't need to know music, but if I start playing a chord progression and end, you know, it's unresolved. We have a way of picking up on unresolved. So this just more than other things, I think, if you don't hit it, it feels unresolved, and we're left. And we've all felt that with a movie or an experience where the dots didn't connect. So we don't want to leave our audience unresolved. So I think really hitting these three elements closes the loop.
All right, Craig, I'm going to be typing the prompts into chat. And obviously, the prompts are here on the screen as well. So if you have a story and you're ready to tell it without the prompts, we invite you to go for it. If you're looking for prompts to start off, this is something we provide in every single workout. So, Craig, with these prompts on the screen, go ahead and share your story, and then I'll finish typing the prompts into chat.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned it's funny, and just thinking about what comes up for me, you said the work I do, right? And though, so that those that might be watching this, I work with organization around organizational culture and help the leadership quantify culture, understand it, so they can be more have more data when they're thinking about making decisions that impact people's lives. So a story is I did some work with a company over the course of a year. It was one of my first big projects. And there was a new CEO, and he believed in culture and workplace culture. He was a seasoned CEO, and he was stepping into an opportunity where it was a little bit of a mess, and it was time to come in and clean things up. At least that was how he was approaching it. And we got in touch and said, we can help with facilitation, but I can't do this without data. Like we need to have a layer of some insight. So part of the project was bringing in a particular tool to do employee listening and to get data. We saw all the personality issues, all the different things, but what we did was we did a big listening exercise and had quantifiable data to understand what was going on in the organization. And one of the things that we saw right away was when we looked at it across location, one of the locations was way off on employee engagement compared to the other locations. And what was really powerful there was that it wasn't that he didn't know this. And I think that's important. He knew a lot of things. He knew there was an issue, but he also thought, new CEO, a lot going on. When he saw it in that way, when he saw it compared to everything and had it quantified in the right way, he was, I know that's a problem. I'm getting down there. And 2 weeks later, he went and took action. He did something. Other than showing and quantifying it, he spent a couple times down there over the next 6 or 7 months. We ran the survey again, and the engagement scores came up. And we really believe it was because he knew where to go just to spend time. These were a group of people that wanted more focus and attention. And by going there, he did that. And I love that story because it's not wonky data. It's simply saying if we can quantify and contextualize data in the right ways to understand what decisions to make and why we're making them, we can be stronger, particularly in a leadership position where our decisions impact lives. So that's about my work and some of the what we did, and a story from beginning, middle, and end.
Thanks, Craig. And in this story, what was your why? Which one of the three C's, or which of the C's were you looking to highlight? Character, credibility, or competency?
All of them.
Yep, I heard that too. All right. So Craig used one where he introduced all three. I'm going to choose one that focuses on one of the three C's. You can probably guess which one it is. So this story takes place at a Starbucks in San Jose.
Mm.
It's an area where I used to live. And Ruth, my partner, we went into the Starbucks, we ordered her a coffee, and we exited the Starbucks just to continue a walk around the neighborhood. As soon as we opened the door, there was something happening right in front of us. So what we noticed, like across the street, there was a car turned sideways. Then a little bit closer to us, there was a motorcycle that was down right in the middle of the road. And then closer to us was the motorcyclist lying on the floor. So this scene had around 40, 50 people that are just looking. They're not doing anything. And I'm going, what the heck is going on here? So Ruth, she has pre-med training. She rushes over to the downed motorcyclist to attend to him, making sure that he is stabilized and nobody is doing anything stupid. What I do is I run into the middle of the road. I start directing traffic because traffic is still going on. I want to make sure that all of the traffic goes around all of the motorcyclists, the car on the side of the road, so that we can preserve at least the safety that exists in the moment. And both of us, we did that. We did that until the fire department, the paramedics, the police arrived. And when all three were in place, we stood down, went back, grabbed our coffees, and just walked down the street. Why do I tell this story? More importantly, why do I tell this story in a business situation? It seems like there's nothing to do with the business world. So why do I share this story? Well, keep in mind that one of the things that I do in my profession is I'm on the production team at conferences. And for a conference producer, I know that one of the challenges they face is things go sideways. And I want them to know that when things go sideways, I've got your back. My team has got your back. We can handle any situation. So what I highlighted there was character. Right? Character means that how you do anything is how you do everything. And I wanted the person in front of me to make that connection. That if I have something that goes sideways, if I have an unexpected event, an emergency, I can feel confident that I have a team that can take care of anything that comes their way. All right, Craig. So those are our two stories. I think it's time for us to welcome folks to the stage.